EV Comply, simplifying your charge point installations.
Friday the 25th of June, another week, another podcast brought to you directly from EV Comply, and this week we're speaking with a guest. So I'm currently joined with Garry Frost, who is in fact head of Rolec EV contractor relations. Hello, Garry.
Hiya, you all right?
Yeah, really good. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's always great to have a chat with somebody new.
Yep, no, it's great to be here and appreciate you inviting me, Chelsea. Thank you.
So there is a reason because we have partnered with yourselves, but we're going to talk about that a little later because firstly, I'd like to touch upon Rolec as a whole, because for those who don't know, Rolec is kind of the originals. They're the OGs of the kind of EV industry, I suppose. So you started off in the marine sector and then kind of branched out, but you were the first to be doing anything of the sort, weren't you, really?
Yeah, marinas and caravan parks mainly, initially actually, caravan parks I believe. So in 1990 the company was heavily involved in sort of installations on caravan parks, but then moving to marinas, and then in the last sort of 10 years being involved with EV charging. So yeah, we are 31 years now in the sort of electrical appliance manufacturing industry, and a good 10, almost 11 years in electric vehicle charging, which I'm sure most people thought was a pipe dream, and has now taken off into the industry that it is. So
absolutely. So that leads nicely onto us mentioning our partnership with yourselves. So here at EV Comply, we have teamed up with Universal Skills Group, of which we've already spoke to Dan Taylor on the podcast, so they're aware of that. But now, Garry, we've teamed up with yourselves at Rolec, and we do believe, as the three musketeers, we can provide the best training, the best equipment, and then the best aftercare support, really, between the three of us. Would you say that that's fair to say?
I think it's more than fair to say, yeah. I mean, we are big advocates of contractors getting trained. We aren't a manufacturer that goes out and does our own work. So, like, again, some of the competitors will go and work directly with an end user. We have a certain route to market, which is via an electrical wholesaler, where an electrical contractor would purchase charging points from, and we would offer obviously our support and guidance in that sense, and then again the wholesaler would sell the product to the contractor, and then they kind of know what they're doing. Not that they don't know what they're doing, of course. We're not trying to teach anyone to suck eggs, and neither are Universal Skills, of course, but there's different aspects to EV charging. So it's not just like putting a cable along a wall and connecting a socket. There's certain things that need to be in place, such as new earthing requirements, or you've got smart solutions where they've got to have data feeds, data connectivity for back office management solutions and stuff like that. So there's a little bit more to it. So we're big advocates of contractors going and getting the right training, which obviously where Universal Skills come in, and then obviously EV Comply doing the sort of the rear end almost, if you like, of it. Obviously I know you guys offer the support initially too, but with paperwork and working with DNOs and stuff like that, so kind of a one-stop shop for contractors to buy our product, get trained by USG, and also work with EV Comply. So hopefully we've kind of tied that all down and locked it all down for a contractor, so that they know exactly what they're doing and what's required of them. Yeah.
Obviously, our side, like you say, we do a lot of the paperwork, help with grant schemes, applications and things like that. So what are your views, Garry? Because obviously you've been around a long time with Rolec. What are your views with all the schemes? Do you think enough's being done? Do you think there's room for improvement?
I definitely think, if you look at how it was in the initial days, there was a mistake made by just letting sort of any homeowner get an EV charge point. We see all the time, and we hear all the time of customers calling up a contractor to say, I've got a charging point, but my Type 1 lead doesn't fit my Type 2 vehicle. They probably went and got one installed back when the government were offering the charge points and paying contractors £1,000. That was the initial fee about sort of 7 or 8 years ago. So it would have been nice to have seen that only have been the case as it is now, where you must have an electric vehicle. So I think there's definitely a case for some funding that wasn't I don't like or want to use the word wasted, but maybe it's the right word. It would have definitely.
Misplaced?
Yeah, misplaced is probably a better word. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think that could have been used much better for dedicated EV drivers. I wouldn't like to count the amount of chargers that are out there that have never been used in those 5 or 6 years, but I would imagine it's quite a few. So hopefully, obviously, everyone will one day go and get their electric vehicle, but it could have probably been spent more charging vehicles up from that period to now. So but the grants are great, obviously, in that sense, and we hope they continue. Would have hoped that the workplace one would have been around much sooner rather than later, because ultimately you're going to charge at work and at home, and they're going to be the main areas where charging takes place. So yeah, those grants are brilliant. Ultimately, as you mentioned, with what you guys can offer, I think a stickler in the past has been a contractor perhaps not wanting to go down that route because of the paperwork. And OLEV, they've not wanted to have made it hard work, but ultimately you do have to complete paperwork. There is lots and lots of different things that come with grant funding. So you guys obviously taking that sort of need away from them or assisting and guiding is a big plus, of course. So yeah.
Absolutely. So this week we've been touching upon obviously the fact that, are we going to reach a point where there's a lot of electric vehicles and there aren't the charging facilities, which I think you've kind of touched upon. And I think sadly that's looking likely, isn't it? Unless we kind of massively pull our socks up. So this week I've been asking people, would you be willing to share your charge point with a neighbour? Because they reckon that maybe, kind of cross-charging, sharing of charging would be a good way forward. What do you think about that? Or do you think maybe there's a better solution out there?
I think it's an option. I guess firstly, it depends on your relationship with your neighbour. If you don't like each other, then that's probably not going to be a viable option. But yeah, if you're friendly with them, then I guess I don't know how you would do that in terms of, I suppose you're having to rely on them or yourself paying for what you use, of course. We have an app-based solution like that, so you could see all of your usage on your Home Smart app. But then it's showing, I don't quite know how that would work in terms of which vehicle would charge. Perhaps you'd have to meter that in a separate way. I'm not opposed to that idea at all. We definitely know there's going to be an issue with on-street charging, as we all go towards electric vehicles. I think there's going to be certain works that are going to be required on street. So, we have an offering, for example, with a streetlight version, and we have an offering hopefully soon where it can be retrofitted onto an existing column. But it's the power that's the issue, of course, getting 16 or 32 amps to a street light that probably only had 6 amps in the first place. So, they're the solutions that are going to be required, of course. I'm sitting on the fence a little bit, Chelsea. I'm sorry, but yeah,
well,
it's a tough one.
Worst case scenario, we could create a brand new series, which would be Neighbour Charger Wars. A lot of people would watch that, if nothing else. Definitely.
Yeah, it'd show up on Dave or something at 8-9 o'clock at night, and
absolutely, it would be.
Show everyone fighting over the local chargers. Yeah, they'd be like police interceptors.
Honestly. So what's Rolec doing? So these are the things that we face. We've come a long way, not to be negative. We've come a real long way in the EV sector. Still a little further to go. So what's Rolec got in play for the future?
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly developing different products and things like that. We're trialing a few at the moment that I can't obviously give anything away about, but there's certain things that we're looking at. There's a lot of, if you take into consideration charging using solar, the products that work with solar are kind of good, because you don't need me to tell you we live in England and it's not always sunny here. We've had a brilliant 2 weeks of sun and then it decided to rain for a week. So but again, solar has a time and a place and is a viable way of charging, but not always and not fully for free. So, for example, there's no way the sun generation for one day would fully charge a Tesla, for example, but it'll aid and abet it, of course. So there's things like that we're looking at that will hopefully, add to it. Battery storage is obviously quite a big one, because even when you don't need to charge your electric vehicle, can be drawing that energy and keeping it there for a rainy day, if you like, excuse the pun. Yeah, it's there's lots and lots of things going on that we're looking at. Obviously we've just sort of been involved with the procurement of Vend Electric, which was a back office provider that we were working with and now own. So that offers commercial charging around the UK with a smartphone or RFID connectivity as well, and that's going to be massive, at workplaces, at various public charging places such as leisure centres and restaurants and that type of thing, where we're all going to be stopped for an hour or two, and it's the perfect opportunity to then plug in and get a charge. So yeah, lots going on. Street lights I mentioned, looking at developing those as well. So yeah, there's lots going on that's going to help certainly move charging forward, rapid chargers and things like that as well. Everybody wants a much quicker charge time. So yeah, there's lots going on here for sure. Yeah.
And who better to do it or to carry it out than, Rolec, with all of the history that you've got and all of the facilities as well, like you said earlier, not necessarily intentionally, but already so massively ahead of the game.
Yeah. I mean, we don't like to blow our own trumpet, but we were probably, there was only, when I remember it, in the early days, us and one or two others,
which is brilliant, and it's all UK based. So for anyone who is enrolling on one of the USG electrical courses, they'll then learn all about Rolec and everything that you've just said in greater detail, and then they'll also leave with the EV Comply support via our app. So the Three Musketeers has launched.
Fantastic. The Triforce.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it needs to be sealed with a gin at some point, but that can absolutely be arranged.
Definitely, count me in.
So Garry, thank you so much. Garry Frost, head of Rolec's EV contractor relations. It's been great to chat with you today. For anyone who does want to enrol in the USG course or know more about Rolec or even ourselves, please do go to our social media pages. It's across all the boards, isn't it? I think we've all got the same information up and contact information.
Yeah. We want to make a song and dance of it, of course, and it's a very good way for, as I mentioned earlier, for contractors to get all of the information and all the knowledge. So we're screaming about it, and it's a great way to learn the knowledge of the installation side of things. We'll give them the product knowledge, and then, as I say, EV Comply can then give them all of that assistance with paperwork, grants, and lots of other things that you offer. So yeah,
thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
No worries. Thanks, Chelsea. Take care.